this is me back on another video. In today's video, we have a special guest. My sibling.
Hi, I'm pretty sure y'all remember me from the older videos.
I forgot what game we did, but today we will.
Floppy's playtime.
Yeah, floppy playtime.
Yeah.
But today we're gonna be reacting to a video. How your favorite games are actually made. Well, my sister doesn't know anything about video games,
Hey,
so.
I played a bit of video games as well. Okay,
What video games have you played?
a bit of Fortnite, FNAF, Ice
FNAF.
the horror game.
That's mobile games.
It still works. Tetris.
Tetris is okay.
2048, Flappy Bird, Crossy Road.
That's all mobile games. You're a mobile gamer. Okay, let's just hop it right into
Roblox. I played a lot of Roblox when I was younger.
when you were younger, but now
Fireboy, Water Girl, Fireboy.
that's such an old game.
Hey, it's my childhood game. Don't ruin it.
Can you tell me what's going on in Roblox right now? What event is going on?
New Year's event.
No, can you name the event?
New Year's event.
No. Okay, let's just hop right into the video.
Army battles.
Yes, let's just hop right into the video.
The first Prince of Persia game was released, it was not like the others. Most of the game characters at that time moved and looked like crude stick figures. The year was 1989. The prince, however, ran and leaped with fluidity and amazing lifelike movements. Well, especially for that time. The game has become a real breakthrough. Modern game developers can recreate real people in the virtual world with all their features down to freckles and even accurately trace their every movement. We'll talk about this a bit later. But the Prince of Persia was created decades before people even began to realize such technologies. The creator of the game, Jordan Mechner, had to get creative. He used a regular camera to record how his younger brother runs and jumps in the parking lot across from their high school. He played back a good take on a TV set in a dark room and photographed the screen several times with a film camera. The result was 35 photos of his brother in action.
This is
No.
this is the starting of animations. People just draw every frame, or they take a picture of every frame and then they just draw it out.
That's called stop motion. Something I've done too with my dogs.
When you were like 6. Anyways,
Mechner then traced over each photograph with a black marker and white correction fluid to create a
what I was talking about.
high contrast silhouette, assembled all the shots into a single sheet of paper, scanned them, and digitized in a special way. And after that, he painstakingly cut all the poses out, pixel by pixel, in order to transfer the future character into the game. As a result, we got very smooth movements of the prince, which became unique. And Prince of Persia gave rise to a whole franchise, and a movie featuring Jake Gyllenhaal. And then a few years later, we saw another famous game, the first one from the Mortal Kombat series. Let me remind you, this happened in 1992, and the technologies were similar. In order to create the characters and their signature moves, the actors were filmed in costumes that can be seen in the game, and they all performed those very moves. Today, this archive footage seems a tad funny, but hey, this is how a whole new era was born. The moves were filmed on the camera of John Tobias, one of the creators of Mortal Kombat, then digitized and became part of the game. Today, many of the moves in the recording look, well, not very menacing, but they became almost iconic nevertheless. Like the spear that Scorpion throws and his famous line, "Get over here." Well, I don't have to tell you, you've probably seen it. This is such an iconic movie, it's hard to believe it was thought up on the spot. However, that's basically what happened. Actor and martial artist Daniel Pesina just suggested doing something like that because he was inspired by throwing a lasso. But he also wanted to give the character something more original because he, and I found this information in various sources,
Why is his fist moving like that?
didn't want to be like Wonder Woman. I don't think I could ever confuse the two. Wanted to give the character something more original because he, and I found this information in various sources, didn't want to be like Wonder Woman. I don't think I could ever confuse the two. True, in the end, part of the throw had to be recycled. The number of frames used to capture the move was very limited. But all this was before motion capture technology revolutionized our lives. Today, motion capture is an integral part of, well, basically anything. This animation
Like how they created the Avengers, Thanos and Hulk. That's how it works.
I'm pretty sure they did it for every hero fiction movie.
Yes, but those are the ones I know.
I think you have to learn how to let go of stuff, but okay.
method implies digitizing the movements of an object using sensors. These sensors are placed on an object. For example, a person puts on a special suit.
Thanos. That looked like the actor that played Thanos. But okay.
Because in a mocap suits like that.
Then he recreates the required movements,
Every mocap suits like that.
Obviously.
imitates some actions, adopts different poses. In short, he does everything an animated image should do. The data from the sensors are read by cameras and fed to a computer, where they're converted into a 3D model.
What? No.
And that's it. It moves exactly like an actor. This is how the developers achieve maximum realism and very smooth, lifelike movements. It's certainly convenient that you no longer have to photograph a TV in a dark room. It seems to be quite clear how motion capture technology works, but each time you look at it, it seems like some kind of magic's at work here. Let's take FIFA 22 as an example. EA Sports literally brought 22 football players to a real stadium in Spain, gave them suits with sensors, then asked them to play a few games. All of the collected data, over 8.7 million frames, were used to create real-time football gameplay animations, according to EA Sports, nearly 9 million frames. Just compare this figure to the 35 shots we talked about in the case of Prince of Persia. This is what progress means. But the FIFA series has long been famous for capturing the movements of famous football players. They've been doing this for many years, choosing only the best, most famous, and recognizable players. While every gamer wants to feel like a football star for a while, for example, for FIFA 16, EA Sports dressed up Lionel Messi in a suit with sensors and introduced his famous no-touch dribbling into the game. And this is just one of the examples. If you've played at least one game in the series, then you know how many star players it has to offer. In FIFA 18, for example, they focused on the technique of Cristiano has to offer. In FIFA 18,
Look
for
how
example,
realistic those knees are. What?
they
That ball, like their shoes, their socks,
Everything looks so realistic.
the bendings on the socks, the shin guard.
The shine.
Yes, the shine.
focused on the technique of Cristiano Ronaldo.
The wrinkles. Every
Yeah,
single
the
wrinkle
wrinkle.
on the shirt.
Okay.
He also had to wear this funny suit and recreate all his coolest and most iconic moves. EA Sports doesn't stop at motion
Cristiano Ronaldo, suey.
capture technology because famous football players in the game not only have to move like the actual players, but also have to look like them. This is where 3D scanning technology comes into play. It utilizes Sports doesn't stop at motion capture technology because famous football players in the game not only have to move like the actual players, but also have to
Look
look.
at those eyes.
In the frame before this, for some reason it reminded me of the time I saw that car accident prevention video in our school.
I don't know.
It's
Look like
like you
them.
put on your seatbelt.
This is where
you have to put on the seatbelt. If not, the robot. It's like a robot that looks like that. It just flies out into the windshield.
where 3D scanning technology comes into play. It utilizes a method called photogrammetry, essentially a recreation of the shape and size of an object from a photograph. Only we aren't talking about a
So are you telling me that they put sensors on the ball?
Why can't you just say creatures on the ball, man? It's just a ball. It's not like
Because
humans.
they have to make it 3D in the game. Who would play a 2D game for like their whole life?
cube or a ball, but for example about Messi. Photos of
Messi ticking the T-balls.
football players are processed with special software that finds unique features like freckles to create a face map. Well, this map makes it easy to generate a 3D image. True, such images usually come out a bit rough, but designers smooth the rough parts. 3D scanned images are considered to be of higher quality. After all, they feature thousands of images per second to
That's weird. He probably got it from shaving his.
Pimples, ingrown hair.
achieve maximum immersion. But when we talk about all these technologies, we usually mean people, because, well, people are quite easy to work with. You can tell them exactly what they need to do. But when it comes to animals, things get complicated. Well, it's not that bad when you're dealing with a more trainable animal like a dog. Things get hard when you have to work with much less obedient animals. Yes, I'm talking about cats. Recently, Digit Pictures
Clean your
obedient
animal,
animals.
bro.
Yes, I'm talking about cats. Recently, Digit Pictures partnered with Vicon to produce quality cat models. And although cats were trained and featured in movies many times, it wasn't easy to make them move naturally. Why? If you have a cat, you probably know how it reacts if you stick something on its fur. As unnatural as it gets. They have to give the animals time to get used to the sensors. First, they placed 1 or 2 sensors on them, then they gradually increased it to the desired number. But in the end, the cats did a great job. They cleared obstacles, ran, climbed hills. In a word, they did what cats usually do. By the way, did you notice that not a single cat had a sensor on its tail? The official reason for this is convenience.
Why is that cat looking at the camera like that?
Like he's judging you severely.
Man, dude, that little cat looks fat. Even though I'm fat.
Cats use their tails for balance and communication, and placing sensors there would startle them or make them move unnaturally. Well, if you have a domestic cat, you probably know what happens if you keep touching its tail. And then there's a question. Why did they film all that in the first place? Of course, in order to use the resulting footage in some games or films. There will be customers for such unique content in any case. However, Stray, the most feline game of the year, used very different technology. It's hard to believe, but the Blue 12 studio that developed the game was inspired by real cats. That is, artists, animators, and actually all the people involved in the process just observed the cats very closely. It's estimated that 80% of the people who worked on Stray keep cats as pets. But the real stars that had the greatest influence on the appearance and the way the main character moves were 3 certain cats. The first is a ginger cat named Murtaugh, who was a stray cat until the founders of Blue 12 adopted
Hi,
it. The history and
Murtaugh.
appearance of the cat greatly influenced the design of the main character of the game. Well, this is quite obvious. The second cat is a sphinx named Oscar who roamed, jumped, and climbed
Hi,
around the office,
Oscar.
providing the cat animator with all the data he needed. And finally, June the black cat. He was in the
Hi,
office
June.
every day along with all the developers and animators,
Look
and this
at
apparently
this.
got him the position of Executive Chief
Hugging
General President Commander Director Officer. I'm not kidding. But you probably wonder, if there are motion capture technologies, wouldn't it be easier to use them instead of looking at cats and drawing them from memory? Perhaps. However, in the game, the cat protagonist does quite dangerous things which a real cat simply wouldn't be able to do. No one would subject an animal to unnecessary risk, especially since the animation based on observation and study turned out to be incredibly realistic. Annapurna Interactive, but the guys unfortunately didn't film the process. However, if you're interested in how the game was created, check out the developer blog and read the Meow News. In general, as you understand, you don't have to use a bunch of sensors in order to animate an animal. Some animals are just so cool their existence is enough to inspire us. Everyone who played Fallout 4 remembers Dogmeat, the dog that accompanied the sole survivor, but not everyone knows that the German Shepherd River, the pet of designer Joel Burgess, was the animal that inspired Dogmeat. The team wanted Dogmeat to be a partner first and a weapon.
COD.
The dog looks so cute.
I know, but it looks like COD, like how they're running. Like when you're injured in COD.
You know every game injured in COD. You mean when you're falling?
No. I mean like
In a battle second.
Oh no.
Originally, the authors were looking
you run from like an uneven surface, you know what I mean?
for inspiration among dogs that worked in movies or were trained for police work. But they were always too formidable. That's where River entered the picture. The owner began to bring her to the studio more and more often, and as a result, the dog became part of the team. It was really a big success. For example, with the help of River, they recorded unique dog sounds that can't be found in any media library. Her character, as well as her appearance, was almost entirely copied into the game, including even the habit of walking ahead of her owner but constantly checking back if he's okay. By the way, remember I said dogs are easier to work with when it comes to motion capture technology? Well, the creators of Call of Duty Ghosts might disagree with me. To create a military dog named Riley, they used 2 German Shepherds and 1 Belgian Malinois. First, the canine actors had to wear special costumes for dogs with skin conditions with reflective markers attached to them. But the dogs got hot very quickly, so they could only work in 20-minute intervals. The animals also wore special rubber boots, also with markers, but they made the movements of the animals look stiff and unnatural, so the boots had to be removed. In the end, they just put reflective tape on the dogs in the right spots, and it worked. But the most unexpected issue people came across when recording the movements of dogs is their excitement. Sometimes animals are so happy and so excited they just can't stop wagging their tails. They do it so actively that they just throw off the attached sensors. Imagine you take your time to carefully set all these sensors on the dog in strictly defined places.
Why?
And to carefully set all these sensors on
Wait.
attached sensors. Imagine you take your time to
There are sensors on the tail.
carefully set
Can you answer my question? Why are there... Why?
all these sensors on the dog
He was giving me a headache. Oh lord.
in strictly defined places.
Have fun for the next...
Like what are those red and blue dots for? You look like a very scary man.
And then it shakes a couple of times, wags its tail, scratches, and you have to start all over again. By the way, don't think that motion capture technology is only good for making games or movies. The digitized images can be used to, for example, monitor a dog's health, detect lameness, or measure its recovery. In short, that's quite a useful technology. And if I understand correctly, such applications already exist. Some not only detect the lameness of the animal, which can be difficult to notice with the human eye, but can also measure the stress the service dogs are subjected to when they attack people. Don't worry, people are well protected during the moments like this. How about horse motion capture? Yes, it does exist, and it's used both for health monitoring and in the video game industry. For example, horseback riding in Red Dead Redemption 2 has been praised as incredibly realistic by many. In the game, the details of riding are so accurately recreated, they're almost inseparable from the real thing. But it's not just about the motion capture technology. That wasn't actually the hardest part. Apart from the fact that the markers periodically dropped off the horse and they had to figure out where exactly they used to be, and the fact that they had to communicate with gestures because the sound was recorded along with the movements. But still, to make the in-game horses as realistic as possible, the team used the technology usually meant for digitizing faces. This technology was applied to specific areas of the horse, such as the muzzle, hindquarters, shoulders, and ribcage. This is how they
How?
digitizing faces.
Wait.
This technology was applied to specific areas of the horse, such as the muzzle,
How did they
hindquarters,
make the
shoulders,
horse
and
do
ribcage.
that? Like
This is how they created incredibly detailed animals. The Last of Us Part 2 development team also needed to digitize horse movements. Initially, they planned to rent an entire equestrian center for this task, but chose Sony Studio instead. Jeremy Yates, the game's lead animator, joked that pretty much the entire current world supply of rubber mats was ordered for the floor. In short, they tried to protect themselves and the animals the best they could. You can also see sheep in the game, and motion capture technology was also used to create them. Alright, they actually used dogs for that? Can you imagine training sheep? Me neither. So the creators of The Last of Us Part 2 simply told the dogs to act like sheep. Well, the trainers probably have some kind of special command.
My job.
Oh my god,
Dogs actually proved to be incredibly useful for this game. This is how, for example, they created the deer animation. Yes, also with the help of dogs. Perhaps they could have played humans too if they really had to. By the way, the horse animation from The Last of Us Part 2 was also used for Ghost of Tsushima. It's a game released by a different studio, but at some point they just joined forces. After all, capturing the movements of such a large animal can be a big issue. Speaking of big animals, how about a tiger? Everyone remembers Life of Pi because of the tiger, and many viewers couldn't understand how the filmmakers convinced a real animal to do all these things.
They didn't.
The animation was so good that the Indian film company initially refused to release the film because they thought that the tiger that looked so exhausted by the end of the film was a real animal. The creators had to prove the opposite. You get it, right? They made such a good digital model, they had to prove it was actually digital in the first place. It took about a year to achieve this effect with only one animal. All that time just to make 158 CG shots of the tiger, which were processed by 40 animators and 120 other artists. But it was impossible to predict how exactly the tiger would behave in extreme situations because, well, animals are different from humans. And the animators could accidentally create something that would look completely unrealistic. For example, do you think that an agitated tiger will walk back and forth, look around, and act something like that?
No.
In reality, a very nervous tiger will act as nonchalant as possible, apparently so that no one could see through it. So they decided to periodically film live tigers, and one day it almost caused a disaster. While filming the tiger in the water, the crew nearly lost the animal. He swam in the wrong spot. Maybe he wanted to get out. There aren't many details of what happened, but the big thing is the poor tiger almost drowned. When this story was revealed, there was a big scandal. But the film already had its Oscars by that time. And now, I want you to listen to something. Steve, turn it on.
Okay.
What do you think is
That's
making
weird,
this
man.
The developers of Halo Infinite hired an animal to voice the aliens. And that animal is...
How can you hire an animal? Do you just, instead of giving someone or the animal money, do you just give them food? Like for life? I don't know.
Gioza the pug. He seems to be the best friend of the studio's technical art director, who supposedly launched the dog's career in voice acting. In fact, snuffles, of course, are the result of a severe facial deformity characteristic of all pugs. Sometimes their breathing problems get so serious they require the intervention of doctors.
Okay, that's not.
But it seems that this time the constant runny nose made Gioza famous. Well, as you can see, the participation of animals in games is not limited to motion capture technology.
Oh, look at
Sometimes they also voice aliens. As for creating weapon sounds in the same game, they used real weapons. The studio's sound team spent a lot of time filming and exploding in the name of bringing the game's weapons to life. This includes the sounds of the weapons themselves, as well as the noises they make when they hit various surfaces. They used typical weapons such as pistols, what appeared to be an actual hand cannon, submachine guns, shotguns, machine guns, and various types of rifles. The developers of Halo Infinite also experimented with more hardcore weapons, even including something that looked like a mortar.
A mortar?
But the most unique example of voiceover in games I've ever heard of is, of course, Simlish, the language of characters in the Sims video game series. Have you heard how they talk?
In the world.
Yibs! Oh, Yibs! Yibs! Oh, love you!
This is the number one proof that Sims are weird and cringy.
That's some completely meaningless gibberish. Though there is a logical reason why this language came to be. The game's creator, Will Wright, realized the characters would need to communicate, but thought that using actual languages such as English would result in repetitive dialogues. And when you hear the same thing over and over again, it becomes annoying. Besides, voicing all this and then translating it into other languages will be quite expensive. That's how Simlish was invented, which only sounds like a real language. But at the same time, the players themselves can imagine what exactly their characters are saying.
Feeling super shocked, and then you're feeling lots of pain. Wowza! Oh, gooby lava!
That's convenient, and most importantly, affordable.
You see what I'm saying? How they cringe.
Since Simlish was so different from any existing human language, it was very difficult for players to detect repetition in it. But the emotional tone of the phrases was clear to everyone. As The Sims evolved, so did Simlish. Instead of one-syllable statements, sentences now have a rather complex structure and a wider emotional range. Honestly, I admire the voice actors who do all this. I wouldn't be up to the task. But the most amazing thing is the covers of famous songs recorded in Simlish. It's incredible what a fictional language has achieved in just, 20 years? A bit more? Ordinary languages take generations to do the same. And since we're talking about game sound design, I just have to mention the winners of the Game Awards 2021 for Best Audio Design. This is Forza Horizon 5, a racing simulator. It'd seem this kind of game can't offer much in terms of sound design, but the creators approached this issue extremely professionally. They took every car they created within the game and recorded every sound it makes.
Expensive.
Not only the sound of the engine or the exhaust pipe, opening and closing doors, hoods and trunks, car horns of different lengths, the sounds that the car makes while driving at different speeds and during different road conditions, even the creak of the suspension.
That's why it's very risky to make a new business. But if you're Horizon, is it Verizon or Horizon? Verizon. If you're Verizon, go ahead. You make billions and gajillions of dollars a day. But if you're a small company, don't. That's how you get broke and bankrupt.
When the car bounces on the road. The creators also noticed that if they record sounds in the garage, they sound like the car that's in the garage. Who could expect that, huh? But they wanted a real live sound, so
I never knew that a car that in the garage it sounds like a garage. Woo!
they began to take cars to the runways. All in all, it seems to me that this is a well-deserved award. The guys did a really good job. Sound wasn't the only aspect that got so much attention. In order to create exact copies of the cars in the game, each of them was digitized in great detail. That is, they literally photographed every detail in order to recreate it later while maintaining the proportions. The same goes for locations. I mean, check out just how dedicated the creators of the game are.
Very dedicated.
Speaking of locations, Microsoft Flight Simulator is an example of how you can recreate the entire planet from pole to pole in high resolution. Stars
Yes.
appear as they do in real time, including the correct phase of the moon. The system even reproduces the effects of the refraction of light in the atmosphere.
Wow.
Don't forget about the incredibly detailed digital models of the plane scanned inside and outside with an Artec Leo 3D scanner with a 0.5 millimeter resolution. How do you like the internal and external acoustics in the cockpit? For example, the echo caused by pelting of rain and snow. To create a super detailed globe, the team used high-resolution satellite imagery, aerial photography, and detailed data from Bing Maps. This dataset, which is constantly being updated and expanded, is now at 3 petabytes, and it keeps growing. As if all that wasn't enough, the company divided our planet's atmosphere from ground level to the stratosphere into 250 million spatial compartments. It's hard for me to even imagine this figure. They also took into account temperature, wind speed, humidity, pressure, rain, snow, and almost everything that determines weather to make the flights look as real as possible. And finally, the icing on the cake. The system uses data from FlightAware, a company that provides real-time aircraft information. What Microsoft Flight Simulator pilots experience in the game is actually occurring. From the way a thunderstorm at sunset looks to a nearby airliner making an approach into an airport.
Wow.
If Denver International Airport's weather station is recording snow and FlightAware shows 40 aircraft in Denver airspace, then users will be landing through a virtual blizzard with 40 other aircraft nearby. And to be honest, this flight simulator is the second thing I like most in this video. Well, the first one being the cat, of course.
Of course.
See you later.
Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. description, and I'll leave the video in the description like always. Um, and show them some support. And thank you for 77 subscribers. It's somewhere here. Well, thank you for 77 subscribers. This video has been 30 minutes, so I'm very sorry. Goodbye. I mean, I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.